Jacque Vaugh. That should be the end of this video. The Brooklyn Nets have completely turned their season around because of Jacque Vaugh. This team has won 11 straight games and are playing the best basketball in the NBA right now by a considerable margin, especially after beating the Bucks considerably, destroying the Warriors the other day. I know they have issues playing on the road, and with Boston's recent loss to the Denver Nuggets. We see that this Brooklyn Nets team is just pure unstoppable. I specifically highlighted this game against Milwaukee because this is the same Milwaukee team without Chris Middleton that knocked the Nets out of the playoffs in their path to win an NBA championship, pretty much based on the length of Kevin Durant's toe, as we all remember that crazy game and that crazy shot where he was inches away from winning the game. But instead, Giannis and the Bucks won in overtime. We see that the Bucks here in this game just get completely dominated. This game, as you will see, is never really close. Next, go up by a good margin and dominate the rest of the way. And this is why I think this team is going to be a real contender for the NBA championship. And I think if I had to pick right now, I'd go with the Nets to win the NBA championship. And I know that's easy to say. They've won 11 straight, but the one thing that I would guarantee, if it's a shame that you can't really bet on it, but I bet the NBA winner will be a team from the Eastern Conference. The Nets, Celtics, and Bucks are just such ahead of the teams from the West. We see every year the teams that win championships have veteran presence, and the teams in the West that are ahead in the standings, like the Pelicans and the Suns, and then not really much the Suns, but the Pelicans and the Grizzlies, they're younger teams, and every year a team that wins a championship is an older team. We see it like last year with the Warriors, they have great veterans. That's another thing the Nets have. They have a really good mix. Obviously, you got KD and Kyrie as your veterans. I'm kind of considering Ben Simmons a younger player because of his absence that he had from the game, and I think the KD and Kyrie and their playoff experience can really help him out because we know Ben Simmons mentally has had some issues, and that's why considering him a younger player, like lack of maturity mentally is, I guess, what we'll call it. Nick Claxton's another younger guy. Yuto Watanabe, he's been amazing. He's another guy without experience that these older guys can help out. Then you have like role-playing vets like TJ Warren that really help your team out. With this team, all this team has to do to get to the Eastern Conference and win a championship, because, like I said before, I'm very confident in the fact that the team from the East is going to win the NBA championship, and it won't be a team from the West, is you have to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo and you have to guard Jason Tatum. Those are really the only two players that scare me. Joel Embiid, maybe if that team gets hot, and even with James Harden, but what they have is they have two good defenders that have different styles of play that can take care of Giannis and Embiid too, if you want to throw him in, and Jason Tatum, because they're all bigger guys. You have Ben Simmons, who's going to be your primary defender, and then if that's not working, you can switch to a little bit quicker Yuta Watanabe, who's someone we've seen play good defense already this season. And we could even see Kevin Durant play good defense when he's asked to. We saw him in the playoffs against Giannis do a fairly good job guarding Giannis, even with his size. You would like to not have Durant have to guard the other team's best player just for him to save his energy on the offensive end, but I think this team matches up really well with these teams, and the way they've been playing and the efficiency that they've been scoring the basketball sets them up really well for the playoffs. Less than 30% of their points are coming from inside the paint. They shoot about, it's under 30%, about 33% from mid-range and about 36% from three. The way that they're scoring is very helpful for come to the playoff time, because we see a lot, especially with Kevin Durant in the playoff runs he's made, and even Giannis in the shots he takes in the playoff runs. Mid-range is key. Threes aren't always going to be there. Teams are going to focus on it, and teams are going to focus on the paint, but they'll often let their guard down a little bit in the mid-range area. They'll be taking away your drive to the paint, so they'll give you a mid-range look, which we all know Kyrie and KD are absolute killers from the mid-range. With this team, another one of the things I like is Nick Claxton and his presence. He's one of those guys that obviously isn't the most talented big, but his frame and his ability to block shots is something that reminds me a lot of Evan Mobley. Another very interesting facet of this team and why they've been so good recently is Kyrie Irving. As always, we know Kyrie's really talented, but something that I think flew under the radar in Cleveland was the difference of how well Kyrie Irving played under Ty Lue versus under David Blatt, and I think we're seeing the same thing here with Jacque Vaugh and Steve Nash. When the Nets brought in Steve Nash, the role for him was you just got to keep the three guys at the stars they had, James Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant. You just got to make them work together and kind of organize them. It was said that Kyrie said that they don't even need a head coach, they're just that good. Obviously, that's untrue. All professional athletes need a head coach. Even the greatest teams, like we saw with the Warriors, needed Steve Kerr to pull them together. Steve Kerr did a really great job with that group because obviously they all want to take shots. Just that's how star players work because they all deserve it. They're all really good players. But what Jacque Vaugh does, and I think what Ty Lue did, is they can connect on a better level to Kyrie than David Blatt and Steve Nash did. Kyrie is obviously a very interesting guy. We see all of his off the court antics. He often has leaves for personal absence. We know the whole thing with him in the COVID shot. But I think having just a guy that, like, if you find someone that can keep Kyrie Irving playing every day and not taking a day off for this or a day off for that, we know all the issues he had this year, all the controversies, the deal with Nike being cut, his interesting comments, all that type of stuff. And just so far, we've seen Kyrie Irving consistently play basketball games, and that's something that hasn't really happened in a while. It didn't never happened in Boston. That's why that didn't work out. Hasn't happened at the Nets so far. That's why that hasn't worked out. If they can get him to keep playing, and obviously you'll have rest days because you don't want to hurt the guy. You don't want your star player getting injured. You know how important he is. But if he keeps playing every day and you build relationships with the players that isn't negative in any way, because I think a lot of players like Kyrie, but when they don't start to like him is when he's not there. I think Kyrie's a really likable player to play with, but it's easy to not like a guy if he doesn't show up, takes personal days off, and even when he's injured, just because you expect him to be there as a player on your team making that amount of money that he's making. So if Kyrie can be there the whole season and his relationship with Jacque Vaughn stays really positive, which it seems to be so far, I think that's the driving factor for this team because I personally think that they can go on to win a championship. They have the roster. You have two really good basketball players. In my opinion, the best basketball player in the world right now, Kevin Durant. I think he's just a tad ahead of Giannis because of his outside shooting ability, but in my mind, those two go back and forth all the time, and Jason Tatum and Luka are making their strong arguments. But I value winning more than individual numbers, and I think Kevin Durant's a winner. That's why I had Giannis over him until so far this season because Durant has been outplaying Giannis and they've been winning more games this season. An 11-game win streak is incredibly impressive to me. And the way Durant's played over this win streak, you have to give him the credit and you have to give him that nod. So, with that being said, this is the team that I would have to pick as of right now to win the championship. Seems easy to say with the win streak, but just the way they play, the way they beat teams, the way been beating teams comfortably in different ways every time. It almost seems like just the continuous to blow out good teams. Like this Bucks team was the same team that beat them in Brooklyn in a 7-game series. Having Seth Curry back from injury adds another shooter, and there's still a trade deadline. They could still make a move because I think 11 games ago when they were sitting at 500, a lot of us were saying, well, maybe you could trade Ben Simmons because it doesn't seem to be working. Now, none of that's none of those rumors are going on. The only trade they could be making at this point would just add in depth if they see fit, if someone's available and they don't have to give up much for it. This team is just being set up so well right now. Uh, Maybe a Cam Thomas trade because seemed to be unhappy early in the year. He's a younger guy. Maybe you could get something good out of him. But besides that, there's really no moves this team needs to be made beside proper load management because all they really have to do if they continue to play the way they are is keep guys healthy. They've now gotten themselves where they're very healthy, 12 games over 500 teams with like they could go 500 the rest of the way out and they're easily in the playoffs and they're top seed in the East. So if they just continue at this clip, play 500 basketball or slightly above 500 basketball, they're going to be up there for the number one seed in the East. They're, like I said, right behind Boston right now. They've passed Milwaukee. They're ahead of Philadelphia. So we'll see how they do in these key games against Boston, against Philly, and against Milwaukee the rest of the season out. But so far, what we see on this impressive win streak, when they've beaten pretty talented teams away and on the road, it's no doubt, and it's not absurd to say that they're the best team in the NBA right now, which I think they are, and I think they can go on to win a championship, and I think the credit has to be given to Jacque Vaughn. The job he's done has been impressive. I enjoy watching this team just because matured as a basketball fan. There's the pure talent this team has is impressive to watch, and that's what we see with KD and Kyrie, and even Ben Simmons from time to time.